We are literally standing on the edge of greatness, just 1 or 2 decisions away from building the most dominant coaching staff this franchise has seen in decades, or completely fumbling the bag at the goal line. Kevin Stefanski is in the building, the culture shift has started, but the rumors swirling around the final pieces of this puzzle are terrifying me, and they should terrify you too. We need to talk about why the names being floated right now could be a disaster, and who we actually need to go out and steal to make this team a Super Bowl contender. Before we dive into the madness of these rumors, do me a massive favor and smash that like button, share this with every Falcons fan you know, and make sure you are subscribed because we are building the strongest community on the internet right here. Listen, we can all take a deep breath and celebrate for a second because getting Kevin Stefanski as the head coach was a massive win. But what happened right after that was even better. Retaining Jeff Ulbrich to run the defense. That is a masterclass move. The man breathes intensity. The players would run through a brick wall for him, and keeping that continuity is huge. And then, the move that nobody is talking enough about, bringing in Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. Do you realize what this means? We just hired arguably the greatest offensive line technician in the history of the sport. That is not an exaggeration. So the foundation is set. We have the head man, the defensive leader, and the trench warfare guru. But now we are staring at 2 gaping holes that will define our entire season: offensive coordinator and special teams coordinator. And the latest reports coming out of Cleveland are making me nervous. A very reliable insider just dropped a bombshell claiming that Stefanski is expected to bring his boys from Cleveland with him, specifically targeting Tommy Rees for the offense and Bubba Ventrone for special teams. Now I need you to pause and really look at this with me. Just because they worked together before does not mean they are the right fit for what we are trying to build in Atlanta. In fact, if we blindly hire these 2, we might be setting ourselves up for failure before the first snap of the season. Let's start with the offense and Tommy Rees. I have watched this guy since his playing days at Notre Dame, and I have tracked his coaching career from South Bend to Alabama to the pros. The report says he is the frontrunner, but let's look at the cold, hard facts. The Cleveland offense last year was abysmal. We are talking about a unit that ranked 30th in the entire NFL. 30th. That is unacceptable. Now, I know the apologists will say, but the offensive line was hurt, it was ranked 31st, he didn't have a chance. Okay, that is fair context. The only line worse than theirs was the Chargers, and they were playing with backups to their backups. But here is my problem with Rees. It is about the schematic fit with our personnel. Rees loves to talk about adaptability, but his core philosophy relies heavily on quarterback mobility and pocket movement. He wants guys who can extend plays with their legs. Now look at our quarterback room. We have Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr., either of whom are going to be confused for Lamar Jackson anytime soon. Kirk is a statue. Penix has functional mobility, but he is a pocket sniper, not a scrambler. If you bring in a coordinator whose system relies on a mobile quarterback to mask protection issues, you are asking for a disaster. We saw what happens when you try to force square pegs into round holes. Plus, consider the philosophy. Stefanski and Rees are run-first guys. They want to pound the rock. If Rees comes in, this offense becomes the Bijan Robinson show, which sounds great on paper, but it turns our quarterback into a pure game manager. Do we really want to draft a guy like Penix, who has a laser rocket arm and can stretch the field vertically, just to have him turn around and hand the ball off 40 times a game? We need a modern, explosive passing attack, not 3 yards in a cloud of dust, while our expensive quarterbacks just watch. I am telling you, Tommy Rees is not the answer. He is safe, he is familiar, but he is not elite. So, who should we get? This is where I need the front office to wake up. Go get Josh McCown. He is currently the quarterback's coach for the Vikings. He has that connection with Stefanski, but more importantly, he has been in a room that understands high-level passing concepts. He played the game for a million years, he thinks like a quarterback, and he has been mentored by Kevin O'Connell. McCown understands how to design an offense for a pocket passer because he was one. He would come in here and actually develop Penix into a superstar, not just a guy who manages the clock. That is the kind of forward-thinking hire we need. I have to ask you, and be honest with me here, do you want a coordinator who is just going to run the head coach's system like a robot, or do you want an innovator who brings fresh ideas to the table? Actually, let's take this a step further. I want to hear your GM skills. Outside of the impossible names like Mike McDaniel or Brian Daboll, who obviously aren't coming here to be coordinators, who is one realistic name you would trust to call plays for this team? Drop that name in the comments right now. I want to see who you guys are scouting. Now, we have to talk about the phase of the game that literally made me sick to my stomach last season. Special teams. The Atlanta Falcons had the absolute worst special teams unit in the NFL in 2025. Ranked 32nd. Dead last. We couldn't kick, we couldn't cover punts, we gave up massive returns, it was a circus. So, the rumor is we want to bring in Bubba Ventrone from Cleveland. Okay, let's check the stats. If we were 32nd, surely Cleveland was top 10, right? Wrong. They were 30th. Think about that for a second. We are thinking about fixing the worst unit in the league by hiring the guy who coached the third worst unit in the league. Does that make any sense to anyone? It is like trading a flat tire for a tire that is leaking air. It is not an upgrade. Bubba is a great guy, high energy, former player, I get it. But the results were not there. We cannot afford to have another year where we lose games because of missed extra points or allowing a 50-yard punt return in the fourth quarter. We need discipline. We need a proven commodity. That is why there is only one name on my list for this job, Brian Schneider. He is currently the assistant special teams coordinator for the Washington Commanders. You want to talk about results? The Commanders were a top 5 special teams unit this past year. Top 5. That is the standard we need to be chasing. Schneider spent a decade running the show in Seattle during their prime years. He is a veteran. He knows how to coach blocking angles, he knows how to fix kickers mentally, and he brings that steady hand approach that we desperately need. When you look at his track record, it speaks for itself. 10 years in Seattle is an eternity in NFL coaching years. That tells you he is consistent, and he delivers. We need to stop looking for the flashy name or the friend of the coach, and start looking for the guy who is actually good at the job. Washington's special teams were a weapon for them. Ours was a liability. The fix is right there. Pick up the phone, call Brian Schneider, and offer him whatever he wants to come fix this mess. So, let's paint the picture of the perfect coaching staff. This is the dream scenario. You have Kevin Stefanski steering the ship as head coach. You have Jeff Ulbrich bringing the fire as defensive coordinator. You have the legend Bill Callahan fixing the offensive line. Then, instead of settling for the Cleveland retreads, you bring in Josh McCown to unlock the passing game as offensive coordinator, and you hire Brian Schneider to turn our special teams into a top-tier unit. If we pull that off, if we assemble that specific group of 5 men, we are not just competing for the division. We are competing for the number 1 seed. We are cooking with gas. It would be a perfect blend of experience, innovation, and technical expertise. But if we just lazily hire Tommy Rees and Bubba Ventrone because they are buddies with the head coach, I promise you, we are going to be having the same frustrating conversations next January. I am feeling optimistic because Stefanski is a smart guy, but he needs to show us that he is willing to look outside his comfort zone to build the best possible staff. The first few moves have been excellent, but these last 2 hires will determine the ceiling of this team. I want to know where your head is at with this new era. We are only a short time into the Stefanski regime, but based on the early moves like retaining Ulbrich and hiring Callahan, are you buying stock in this team? Are we finally on the right track? Give me a why for yes or an and for no in the comments. I am leaning heavily towards yes, but these next 2 hires have to be right. We are going to be tracking this news every single hour, so keep it locked right here. We are chasing that number 1 spot for Falcons coverage, and we can't do it without you. Rise up.